Teachers, what's the most elaborate way a student ever tried to frame you for something you didn't do? I'm halfway through my turkey sandwich when my email pings, and it's from Principal Horns with the subject line, "Urgent, my office now." Like, no context, no explanation, just those 4 words in all caps followed by parents threatening lawsuit. My heart starts beating. I've been teaching for 6 years and I've never even gotten a parking ticket, let alone a lawsuit threat. I literally abandoned my lunch on the table, and I'm speed walking through the hallways trying to think of what this could possibly be about. Did a kid get hurt in my class? Did I fail someone who deserved to pass? My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my ears. A lawsuit means my teaching license, my career, everything I've worked for since college could just vanish. I reach the main office, and through the glass door, I see them. 2 parents sitting across from Principal Horns looking absolutely furious, and between them sits my student Jenna with her arms crossed. Everyone turns to look at me when I walk in, and the temperature in that room feels like it drops 20 degrees. Here's the thing, though. Jenna has been, my favorite student all year, hands down the best part of my day. She always stays after class just to chat about books or ask about my weekend, and she started bringing me coffee every Friday because she noticed I looked tired. She calls me the only teacher who actually gets me, and honestly, it felt good hearing that because teaching can be pretty thankless sometimes. Her grades went from C's and D's to straight A's under my mentoring, like complete transformation. She even nominated me for Teacher of the Year and wrote this whole essay about how I changed her perspective on learning. I spent hours tutoring her for free, even came in on Saturdays to help with her college essay because her parents both work and couldn't afford a tutor. Her mom and dad sent me this handmade thank you card last month saying I changed Jenna's life, and they're forever grateful. Just last week, Jenna gave me another card with a drawing she made saying I'm like family to her. So when Principal Horns looks at me with this expression I've never seen before and asks me to explain the inappropriate relationship with Jenna, I'm so startled my body moves like a glitching Sims character. What? There's no relationship. I'm her teacher. Jenna's mother stands up so fast her chair scrapes across the floor and she slams this thick folder onto Principal Horns' desk. Then explain these. The folder opens and there are printed text messages. Pages and pages of them. I lean forward to look and see my phone number is right there at the top, clear as day, listed over a dozen times calling Jenna. Then I see my number was used in a conversation with Jenna's number. The messages are, they're bad. Really bad. Overly familiar stuff about Jenna's personal problems, late-night conversations happening at 2 a.m. on school nights, inside jokes that sound way too friendly for a teacher-student relationship. I'm disgusted, but I need to know what I'm being accused of. So I'm turning through the pages with my hands shaking, and there are messages about meeting up outside school, grabbing coffee together on weekends, discussing Jenna's dating life in detail. Then I see one that makes my blood run cold. Don't tell your parents we're talking like this. And the worst one. The one that makes Jenna's dad actually stand up looking like he wants to hit me. You're so mature for your age, not like my other students. I look up at Principal Horns. I never sent any of these. I've never texted Jenna outside of school, except for reminders I sent to my whole class roster. Jenna's mom starts crying. Just admit what you did. I pull out my phone with shaking hands to prove it, to show them my actual messages, but when I open my texts, the conversation is there. In my phone. I start scrolling back and there are months of these messages I absolutely did not write. My mouth goes dry, because how is this even possible? I look at Jenna, who's sitting there staring at the floor, not looking at anyone. Jenna, I say, and my voice cracks. Tears start running down her face. I see her dad take a step towards me, ready to send me to the hospital. I try again. Jenna, you know I never sent these messages. You know that. Tell them the truth right now. This is my life, Jenna. Why would you ruin it? Jenna just sits there, crying, saying nothing. I turn to Principal Horns and I keep my voice steady even though I'm shaking. Check the phone records. The real phone records from the carrier. The metadata will prove I never sent any of these. Then I walk out of that office while Jenna's father is mid-scream about ruining my life, knowing this is just the start. I walk straight to my car in the parking lot and my hands won't stop shaking. I get in and just sit there with the door closed, staring at the steering wheel. 20 minutes pass and I'm still sitting there trying to make my breathing go back to normal. The phone in my pocket feels wrong, like it's burning through my jeans even though I know that's stupid. I can't stop thinking about those messages that are somehow right there in my texts. Messages I absolutely did not write, but they're just sitting there like proof of something I never did. I pull out the phone and stare at it, then shove it back in my pocket because looking at it makes me want to throw up. I finally remember the teachers' union number I saved in my contacts years ago, but never needed. My hands are still shaking when I dial, and a woman answers on the second ring. Her voice is calm and professional, and I just start talking, words spilling out about fake messages and Jenna's parents, and how my phone has conversations I never sent. She listens without interrupting while I'm rambling and probably not making sense. When I stop to breathe, she tells me in this steady voice to go home right now and touch nothing on my phone until she calls me back. She says her name is Veronica Goodwin, and she's going to help me. I start my car and drive home on autopilot, barely remembering the route. Veronica calls back within an hour and explains she's my union rep now. The first rule is I make 0 statements to anyone without her there. 0. She starts asking detailed questions about my relationship with Jenna, and I answer everything. Every coffee she brought me on Fridays, every after-school conversation about books or her college essay, every Saturday tutoring session in the library, the times she stayed late to chat while I graded papers. I hear her taking notes on the other end, the sound of pen on paper, and it makes everything feel more real and more scary. She asks about gifts, and I tell her about the thank you cards and the drawing. She asks if I ever texted Jenna, and I explain about the class roster reminders I send to all students. She asks if anyone else had access to my phone, and I say no, but even as I'm saying it, I'm not totally sure. That night I can't sleep, so I'm lying in bed at midnight scrolling through the fake messages again. This sick feeling sits in my stomach, getting worse with every swipe. There are months of conversations here, dozens of exchanges happening at times I know I was asleep or sitting in faculty meetings or teaching class. The tone sounds nothing like how I actually talk to students. I use different words, different phrases. The messages are too casual, too friendly, using slang I don't even know. It's like reading someone else's conversation, except it's my number right there at the top. I start noticing the timestamps cluster around 2 and 3 in the morning on the school nights. That makes no sense because I'm always asleep by 11. I'm a morning person. I go to bed early. Everyone at the school knows that. I screenshot every single message with the timestamps visible, creating my own file of documentation. It makes me feel dirty just looking at them, reading words I never wrote about things I never said. But I keep going, saving every screenshot to a folder on my phone. Around 4 in the morning, I'm still awake, and I remember something that makes me go completely cold. Jenna used to stay after class almost every day, and I'd sometimes leave my phone on my desk while I wrote on the board or helped other students. She brought me coffee every Friday and would stand there chatting while I unlocked my phone to check my calendar or respond to parent emails. I trusted her completely. She was my favorite student. I handed her my unlocked phone once when she asked to call her mom because her phone was dead. How long was she alone with it? 5 minutes? 10? Long enough to do something? My email pings at 6 in the morning, and it's from principal with the subject line about administrative leave. I open it with my heart pounding, and the email is cold and formal. Effective immediately, I'm on paid administrative leave. I need to surrender my classroom keys and school laptop by end of day. There's nothing personal in it, no acknowledgement of the 6 years we've worked together or the friendly conversations at faculty meetings, just procedures and requirements and formal language that makes me feel like a criminal. I meet Veronica in person for the first time at the district office later that morning. She's this woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes behind glasses. She shakes my hand firmly and immediately makes me feel less alone, like someone is actually on my side. We sit in a conference room and she walks me through what happens next. HR investigation that could take weeks. Possible police involvement if the parents push it. Potential license board review that could end my career. She lays it all out in clear terms, and I realize sitting there that this could get so much worse than I even imagined. Veronica gives me clear instructions, and I write them down in my notebook with shaking hands. Preserve my phone exactly as it is. Don't delete anything. Don't add anything. Just leave it alone. Document every interaction I can remember with Jenna going back to the start of the school year. Create a timeline of my typical daily schedule showing when I'm usually asleep or in meetings. And the hardest one, absolutely do not try to contact Jenna or her parents no matter how much I want to explain or defend myself. She says anything I say to them could be used against me later. I take notes on everything because my brain feels like it's short-circuiting and I'm scared I'll forget something important. That night I go through my phone more carefully, looking at settings and accounts and apps I normally never check. I find an old email from Apple buried in my inbox from months ago. The subject line says something about my Apple ID being used to sign in. I open it and read that my Apple ID was used to sign in to messages on a Mac. The date on that email is from last October, right around the time when Jenna started bringing me coffee every Friday. I stare at that date for a long time, my hands going cold, because I don't own a Mac, and I never signed into messages on any computer except my own laptop. I pull up my calendar app and start scrolling back to October, looking for that date on the Apple email. My hands are shaking a little as I swipe through the weeks, and then I find it. Friday, October 13th. Parent-teacher conferences had run late that week, and I remember Jenna stayed after because her mom couldn't make the scheduled time. I'd been rushing around making copies of progress reports for the next batch of parents, and Jenna asked if she could use my phone to call her mom because hers was dead. I unlocked it and handed it to her without even thinking about it. She was my favorite student. I trusted her completely. I left her alone in my classroom with my unlocked phone for maybe 10 minutes while I ran to the copy room down the hall. That's all it would have taken. 10 minutes to get into my settings, write down my Apple ID, set up 2-factor authentication on another device. My stomach twists because I gave her everything she needed, and I didn't even realize it. I check the time, and it's almost 10 p.m., but I call Veronica anyway because this feels too important to wait until morning. She answers on the 3rd ring, and I start talking fast, explaining about the Apple email and the date and Jenna borrowing my phone. Veronica's voice gets this edge of excitement I haven't heard before, and she cuts me off mid-sentence to say this could be exactly what we need. She tells me she's going to connect me with a digital forensics expert first thing tomorrow morning, someone who can examine my phone and document everything properly. She makes me promise not to do anything else with my phone tonight, just leave it alone and get some sleep if I can. I agree, even though I know there's no way I'm sleeping. After we hang up, I just sit there on my couch, staring at my phone like it's evidence in a crime scene, which I guess it kind of is. The next morning, I meet Ahmed at a coffee shop downtown that Veronica recommended because it's quiet and has good Wi-Fi. He's younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, wearing jeans and a hoodie like he just rolled out of bed. But the second I show him my phone, his whole expression changes, and he gets this laser focus that makes me feel like I'm in good hands. He asks me to walk him through everything while he takes notes on his laptop, and I explain about the fake messages and the Apple email, and my theory about Jenna getting access. Ahmed nods along and then explains in terms I can actually understand that if someone got my Apple ID login information, they could set up messages on a Mac or iPad, and any texts they sent would show up as coming from my number. The messages would sync to my phone automatically through iCloud, and I'd never know unless I was specifically looking for another device on my account. Ahmed takes my phone and connects it to his laptop with a cable, explaining that he needs to do a complete forensic backup right now before anyone can claim I deleted anything or changed anything. He's talking while he works, showing me how to navigate to my Apple ID settings and check what devices are connected. I watch over his shoulder as he scrolls through the list, and there it is, a device listed as Mac that I've never owned or used. My heart starts beating faster because this is actual proof that someone else was accessing my account. Ahmed screenshots everything, the device name, the serial number, the last activity date. Then he shows me the timestamp on the unknown Mac. Last activity was 2:47 a.m. 3 days ago. I pull up the folder of fake messages on my phone and scroll to that exact time, and there's a message to Jenna sent at 2:47 a.m. The timing matches perfectly. Ahmed explains this proves someone else was accessing my messages, but we'll need more evidence to show it wasn't just me using a different device. He says anyone could argue I bought a Mac and used it myself. Ahmed suggests checking with my phone carrier to get records of actual SMS texts versus iMessages, since the fake conversations all went through iMessage according to what I showed him. He explains that SMS texts go through the cellular network and leave different records than iMessages, which go through Apple's servers. If we can show that I sent 0 SMS texts to Jenna's number, it supports the theory that someone was using my Apple ID to send iMessages from another device. I call my carrier right there at the coffee shop and request detailed records going back 6 months. The customer service person puts me on hold for a while and then comes back saying it'll take 3 business days to compile everything and they'll email it to me. 3 more days of waiting while my life is on hold. Ahmed packs up his laptop and tells me he'll write up a preliminary report documenting everything we found today, and he'll have it ready by tomorrow afternoon. I'm driving home from the coffee shop when my email pings, and I glance at it at a red light. It's from someone named Ronan Marshall in the HR department with the subject line about a formal investigatory interview scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. My stomach drops as I read it. Veronica will attend with me, which I'm grateful for, but the email lists the subjects of inquiry as boundary violations and inappropriate conduct. Seeing those words in official HR language makes everything feel more real and more serious. This isn't just an accusation anymore. This is a formal investigation with official procedures and potential consequences that could end my career. The light turns green and someone honks behind me because I'm just sitting there staring at my phone. That evening, my phone starts buzzing with text messages from other teachers. At first, it's just 1 or 2 asking if I'm okay, but then more start coming in. Lisa from the math department asks what's going on. Noah, who teaches history, wants to know if the rumors are true. I don't even know what rumors he's talking about until he sends me a screenshot from the parent Facebook group. Someone posted that a teacher at our school is on leave for an inappropriate relationship with a student. My name isn't mentioned, but the post has dozens of comments already. Parents are demanding to know who it is. Someone says they heard it was a male teacher in the English department. Another parent comments that they're pulling their kid out of school until the district makes a statement. The staff group chat is blowing up too, with teachers speculating about who it could be and whether administration will tell us anything. I open Facebook on my laptop even though I know I shouldn't, and I search for posts about the school. There's one from a parent I don't even recognize, someone whose kid must go to the school but I've never taught them. The post says a teacher at our school has been grooming a student and parents need to be aware. 3 people have tagged the school's official page in the comments. Parents are replying asking who it is and why the person hasn't been arrested yet. Someone comments that they heard the teacher is still being paid while on leave and that's unacceptable. Another parent says their daughter heard from a friend that it's me and they use my actual name in the comment. Now it's out there publicly connected to words like grooming and inappropriate. I feel sick reading it, but I can't stop scrolling through the comments. My phone rings and it's Veronica. She tells me in this firm voice that I need to immediately lock down all my social media accounts and stop reading anything online. She says the court of public opinion moves faster than actual investigations, and right now I need to focus on building my defense rather than defending myself in Facebook comments. She reminds me that anything I post publicly could be used against me in the HR investigation, or if this somehow goes to court. I need to stay completely silent on social media, no matter how much I want to explain my side or correct the rumors. She asks if I've been responding to any of the teacher texts, and I tell her I haven't replied to anyone except to say I can't talk about it. She says that's exactly right. Keep doing that, and she'll see me tomorrow morning at the HR interview. After we hang up, I go through and change all my privacy settings on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I make everything private or friends only. Then I close all the apps and put my phone face down on the table because I can't trust myself not to keep checking. The carrier records show up in my email 3 days later as a PDF attachment, and I download it with my hands shaking so bad I almost drop my phone. I scroll through pages of data showing every text message sent from my number for the past 6 months, and there's a column that says SMS versus iMessage. Every single message to Jenna's number shows up as iMessage, not SMS. 0 regular text messages went from my phone to hers during any of the times those fake conversations supposedly happened. I forward the PDF to Veronica immediately, and she calls me back within 10 minutes saying this is exactly what we needed. The HR interview is scheduled for the next morning at 9 a.m., and I barely sleep that night going over everything I need to say. I show up at the district office wearing a button-down shirt and tie because Veronica told me to look professional, and she meets me in the lobby with a folder full of documents. We walk into a conference room where Ronan is already sitting with a laptop open and a legal pad covered in notes. He shakes my hand and his grip is firm, but his face gives nothing away. Veronica sits next to me and places the folder on the table between us like she's ready for battle. Ronan starts by reading me my rights in this investigation, explaining that anything I say can be used in employment decisions and potentially in legal proceedings. Then he opens his laptop and pulls up what looks like a timeline of events. He asks me to explain the Apple ID situation from the beginning, and I walk him through finding the email about my account being used on an unknown Mac. Ronan types notes while I talk, but his expression stays skeptical, like he's heard excuses before and mine isn't landing. He asks why I was tutoring Jenna on Saturdays without filing volunteer paperwork with the district. I admit I didn't know I needed paperwork for informal tutoring, and that I was just trying to help a student who couldn't afford a private tutor. Ronan writes that down and asks about the coffee she brought me every Friday and the handmade cards. I feel my face getting hot because I know how this looks now, even though it felt innocent at the time. I explain that accepting small gifts from students felt normal, that other teachers get holiday cookies or thank you notes, but Ronan points out that weekly coffee and personal cards with drawings saying, "I'm like family" crossed a line. I try to separate the boundary issues from the message accusations, telling him I understand I got too comfortable with informal mentoring, but that doesn't mean I sent inappropriate texts. Ronan just keeps taking notes and says the investigation will continue while they verify my technical claims about the Apple ID. The whole interview takes 90 minutes, and by the end I feel like I've been put through a grinder. Veronica walks me out to the parking lot and tells me I did fine, that admitting the boundary mistakes actually helps because it shows I'm being honest instead of defensive about everything. 2 days later, Ahmed calls with more findings that make my stomach flip. He traced the IP address of that unknown Mac, and it's coming from an internet provider that services Jenna's neighborhood. It's not definitive proof since IP addresses can be masked or spoofed, but combined with everything else, it's building a strong case that someone in her area was accessing my account. Ahmed explains the technical details about how IP geolocation works, and I'm writing it all down even though half of it goes over my head. Veronica calls that same afternoon and says we need to bring in an education law attorney to coordinate with both the union and potential police involvement. She recommends someone named Benjamin Kim, who specializes in defending teachers against false accusations. I ask how much an attorney costs, and Veronica says the union will cover part of it, but I should expect to pay around $5,000 out of pocket. I feel sick hearing that number because I don't have $5,000 just sitting around. I meet Benjamin the next week in his office downtown, which is in this glass building that makes me feel out of place in my teacher clothes. He's younger than I expected, maybe in his 40s, wearing an expensive-looking suit and sitting behind a huge desk covered in case files. He shakes my hand and immediately starts asking rapid-fire questions about my relationship with Jenna, the timeline of events, what evidence we have so far. I show him everything. The carrier records, Ahmed's forensic report, the Apple ID email, my documentation of where I was when messages were sent. Benjamin spreads it all out on his desk and studies each document carefully, making notes on his legal pad. He explains that even if we prove the messages are fake, I'll still face consequences for the boundary violations. But the difference between inappropriate conduct and poor judgment is the difference between losing my teaching license forever and keeping my career with some disciplinary action. He starts building a defense strategy right there, talking about how we'll present the technical evidence and frame the boundary issues as mistakes in judgment rather than intentional misconduct. The school resource officer, Leah, contacts me 2 days later, requesting a voluntary statement about my relationship with Jenna. I forward her email to Benjamin, and he calls me immediately saying to decline the request. He explains that anything I say to Leah could be used in both the employment case and a potential criminal case, and we need more evidence before I make any official statements to law enforcement. I feel trapped because declining to talk makes me look guilty, but Benjamin says it's standard legal strategy and any decent attorney would give the same advice. A week after that, the district forwards me a demand letter from Jenna's parents' attorney. It's 3 pages of legal language threatening a lawsuit for negligent supervision and failure to protect their daughter from a predatory teacher. The letter includes direct quotes from the fake messages, the ones about not telling parents and her being mature for her age. It demands I be immediately terminated and criminally prosecuted, and it gives the district 30 days to respond before they file suit. Reading those words makes me feel like I'm going to throw up, because this is my life they're destroying with lies. The next blow comes in an email from the district's HR department saying I'm being removed from my role as academic decathlon club advisor, effective immediately. I was getting a $3,000 annual stipend for running that club, which doesn't sound like much, but it's money I was counting on for rent and bills. The email says they can't have me in any student-facing role even unofficially while under investigation. My finances are already tight from the attorney fees, and now I'm losing income on top of it. Late one night when I can't sleep, I'm going through my memory of every single interaction with Jenna, trying to figure out how this happened. I remember a day back in October when she asked to borrow my phone to call her mom because hers was dead. I'd unlocked it and handed it to her without thinking twice, then got pulled into a conversation with another student about their late assignment. Jenna had my phone for maybe 5 minutes while I was distracted. She could have easily gone into my settings, grabbed my Apple ID information, written down my 2-factor authentication code if one popped up. The timing matches exactly with that Apple email about my account being used on a Mac. I call Veronica first thing the next morning and tell her about this memory, and she says to write down every detail I can remember about that day while it's fresh. I send Veronica the detailed write-up that same night, and she responds within an hour saying this is exactly the kind of specific memory we need. 2 days later, the district IT department sends over access logs for my school laptop showing every single time it was turned on and connected to the network over the past 6 months. I scroll through the spreadsheet, and every login is during school hours between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m., always from the school's IP address, never from home or any off-site location. There's not a single login at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. when those fake messages were being sent. It's not proof by itself since the messages went through my phone and Apple account, not the laptop, but it backs up my claim that I wasn't awake and active on my devices during those late-night hours. I forward the logs to Benjamin and Ahmed immediately. 3 days after that, I'm lying on my couch in the middle of the afternoon because I have nothing else to do on paid leave, and my phone buzzes with an Instagram notification. It's a message request from an account with no profile picture, and the username is just random letters and numbers. The message says Jenna told me things got out of hand and she doesn't know how to stop it now. My heart starts racing and I want to respond immediately to ask who this is and what exactly Jenna said, but I remember Veronica's instructions about not making any contact without running it past Benjamin first. I screenshot the message and send it to Benjamin with shaking hands. He calls me back in less than 5 minutes asking if I responded, and I tell him no, I didn't touch it. He sounds relieved and tells me to leave the account on read. Don't block it, don't respond, just let it sit there. He's going to try to figure out who owns the account. Benjamin calls back the next morning saying the Instagram account belongs to Marissa Powell, one of Jenna's close friends from the school. He tracked it down through some kind of legal process I don't fully understand involving Instagram's parent company. Benjamin asks if I know Marissa, and I tell him I've had her in class before. She's quiet, never caused any problems, but I don't know her well. Benjamin says he's going to contact Marissa's parents through proper legal channels and see if she's willing to provide a statement about what Jenna told her. I ask if that's safe, if it could backfire and make us look like we're going after Jenna's friends, but Benjamin says as long as we go through parents and follow all the right procedures, it should be okay. A week goes by with no word, and I'm starting to think Marissa's parents shut it down, but then Benjamin emails saying Marissa agreed to give a statement with her parents present. He attaches a copy, and I read it sitting at my kitchen table. Marissa says Jenna was really upset back in September when I hadn't written her college recommendation letter as quickly as she wanted. Marissa says Jenna's parents were fighting a lot at home, talking about separation, and Jenna felt like I was the only stable adult who actually cared about her. The statement describes how Jenna would talk about our tutoring sessions constantly, how she felt like I understood her better than her own parents, how she started to depend on our conversations to get through her day. It's not a confession that Jenna faked the messages, but it gives context for why she might have done something this extreme. Benjamin calls after I've had time to read it and explains that Marissa provided more details in a follow-up. Marissa says Jenna felt abandoned when I had to cancel 2 Saturday tutoring sessions in a row because of family emergencies on my end. That was back in early October, right around the time of that Apple ID email. Marissa's statement says that's when Jenna started talking about making me see how much I meant to her, about showing me that I couldn't just drop her like everyone else in her life had. Marissa didn't understand what Jenna meant at the time and thought she was just being dramatic about the canceled tutoring. Reading this makes me feel sick because I remember those cancellations. I remember feeling guilty about letting Jenna down, but I had legitimate family stuff I had to handle. I never imagined she'd take it this hard or that it would lead to this. Benjamin warns me the next day that we need to be really careful with how we use Marissa's statement. He says it could look like we're attacking or intimidating a minor, trying to paint Jenna as mentally unstable or manipulative. We're going to share Marissa's information with HR and investigators only as context, not to publicly discredit Jenna or make her look bad. The goal is to show investigators that Jenna had a possible motive based on her emotional state and the timeline of events, not to destroy a teenager's reputation. I agree, because even though I'm furious at what Jenna did to me, she's still a kid, and I don't want to hurt her more than this situation already has. Ronan sends an email a few days later saying the investigation is being paused pending the police department's review. He explains that criminal matters take precedence over employment issues, and HR has to wait for law enforcement to finish before they can proceed with their own conclusions. I'm stuck in limbo on paid leave, which sounds better than it is, because I'm going completely stir-crazy at home. I can't go to the school, can't see my students, can't do the job I've spent 6 years building a career around. Meanwhile, my reputation is getting destroyed online, with parents posting about the investigation and speculating about what I did. I check the school's Facebook page against my better judgment and see parents demanding answers, calling for my immediate termination, saying their kids aren't safe. My name still isn't officially public, but enough people know that it's only a matter of time before someone posts it directly. Then the anonymous tips start coming into the school. Leah contacts Benjamin saying they've received multiple calls and emails claiming there are other victims, that I have a pattern of inappropriate behavior with female students going back years. Benjamin requests details on these tips, and Leah says they're investigating each one, but so far none have produced any actual complainants or evidence. The tips are vague, saying things like other students have complained or there are rumors, but when investigators follow up, there's nobody willing to make an actual statement. It feels like people are piling on now that I'm vulnerable, making up stories or exaggerating normal teacher-student interactions to make themselves part of the drama. Every new tip sends Benjamin and Veronica scrambling to defend against claims that don't even have names attached. Ahmed finally completes his full forensic report after 3 weeks of analysis. The report is 40 pages long with technical details I barely understand, but the conclusion is clear. Messages were sent from a Mac computer using my Apple ID during specific times when my phone's location data shows I was either at the school in meetings with other teachers present or at home asleep based on my phone's movement patterns and screen activity. The report includes detailed explanations of how iMessage syncing works, how someone with brief access to an unlocked phone could have obtained Apple ID credentials, and two-factor codes, and how they could have set up a Mac to send and receive messages that would appear to come from my number. Ahmed includes screenshots of the device list showing the unknown Mac, the IP address data pointing to Jenna's neighborhood, and the timeline of when that Mac was first added to my account in October. Veronica takes Ahmed's report and formally submits it to HR with a request that it be included in my personnel file. She's building a paper trail showing that we've been cooperative and transparent throughout the investigation, that we've provided extensive technical evidence supporting my claims, and that we've followed every proper procedure. She tells me this documentation will matter if this goes to a formal hearing or if the union needs to defend me against termination. The paper trail shows we took this seriously from day one and didn't just deny everything without backing it up. My colleagues start reaching out privately over the next week. Apparently, Ronan has been interviewing teachers who had Jenna in their classes or who observed my interactions with her. 3 different teachers messaged me saying they told Ronan they noticed Jenna was overly familiar with me, that she brought me gifts constantly, stayed after class every single day, and talked about me to other students in ways that seemed inappropriate. One teacher, Mrs. Anderson, who teaches English, tells me she actually pulled Jenna aside once and warned her about maintaining appropriate boundaries with teachers. Mrs. Anderson says she noticed Jenna was treating me more like a friend or older boyfriend than a teacher, and it made her uncomfortable. She told Jenna that bringing coffee and gifts every week wasn't normal student behavior and that she needed to back off a little. According to Mrs. Anderson, Jenna got defensive and said I was the only teacher who really understood her and that other teachers were just jealous of their relationship. Reading these messages from colleagues makes me feel validated but also guilty because I should have noticed these warning signs myself and shut it down earlier. That weekend, I spread every calendar, planner, and attendance record I own across my kitchen table and start building a timeline. I go month by month, writing down every single class period, faculty meeting, parent conference, and tutoring session from September through March. For each day when fake messages were sent, I document exactly where I was, and I pull up old emails and texts to other teachers to prove it. Like there's a message sent to Jenna at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday in November, and my calendar shows I had an 8 a.m. department meeting the next morning that I led, with notes I prepared the night before at 9 p.m. I find a photo I posted on social media at 10:30 p.m. that night, showing my cat asleep on my lap while I graded papers. I'm building proof that I was home, asleep, living my normal, boring life while someone else was using my Apple ID to send those messages. The timeline takes me 3 full days to complete, and by Sunday night, I have a 40-page document with timestamps, locations, and witnesses for almost every hour of the past 6 months. I send it to Benjamin and Veronica, and Benjamin calls me back within an hour saying this is exactly what we need. Benjamin files preservation letters with Jenna's parents' attorney on Monday morning. The letters demand that they preserve all of Jenna's devices, her cloud storage accounts, any computers in their home, and all internet router logs. He's creating a legal record that if they delete anything now, it'll look like destroying evidence. The letter explains we have technical proof that messages were sent from a Mac computer in their neighborhood, and we're prepared to subpoena device records to prove which specific computer was used. Benjamin tells me this is a strategic move because even if we never actually get access to Jenna's devices, the preservation letter puts pressure on them and shows we're serious about fighting this. He's building the foundation for potentially proving exactly how she did it, and the letter makes clear we're not just going to accept these accusations without a real fight. 2 days later, Marissa reaches out again through her parents, who contact Benjamin directly. She sends a screenshot she saved from a group chat back in January, weeks before the accusations started. In the screenshot, Jenna is talking to friends about me, and the messages say things like, "I'm going to make him see me differently," and "he needs to understand how much I need him." There's another message where Jenna says, "He's the only one who gets me, and I can't just be another student to him." The screenshot isn't proof that Jenna faked the messages, but it shows her mindset was getting unhealthy way before any of this blew up. It shows she was thinking about me in ways that went beyond a normal student-teacher relationship, and she was actively planning to change how I saw her. Benjamin saves the screenshot and adds it to our evidence file, and I feel this weird mix of validation and guilt, because this proves Jenna was fixated on me. But I still missed all the warning signs. Benjamin and Veronica have a long phone call that night about whether to use Marissa's screenshot. Veronica is worried it'll look like we're trying to paint a 16-year-old girl as manipulative or mentally unstable, which could backfire and make people sympathize with Jenna even more. Benjamin argues the screenshot provides important context about Jenna's state of mind and her intentions toward me. They go back and forth for over an hour, and finally they decide to share it only with HR and the investigators as background context. We won't leak it publicly, we won't show it to the media if they come asking, and we won't use it to attack Jenna's character. It's just context to help investigators understand the full picture of what was happening in the months before the accusations. Benjamin sends it to Ronan with a cover letter explaining we're providing it confidentially as part of the investigation, not as a weapon against a minor. 3 days later, Ronan emails me directly with Benjamin and Veronica copied. The email says he's scheduling what he calls a Loudermill hearing for next week. It's a pre-disciplinary meeting where I'll have a chance to respond to all the evidence before any final employment decision gets made. Benjamin calls me right after the email comes through and explains this is actually a good sign. It means the district is following proper procedures instead of just firing me on the spot. The Loudermill hearing is my chance to present my side, show all the technical evidence, and explain what really happened. Benjamin says we'll prepare carefully and bring everything we have, including Ahmed's forensic report, the carrier records, my timeline, and all the documentation showing someone else accessed my Apple ID. He sounds almost optimistic for the first time in weeks, and I try to let myself feel a little bit of hope. But then Veronica calls with bad news. Word is getting back to her through her contacts in the district that some board members are pushing hard for my immediate termination, regardless of what the evidence shows. They're arguing that the optics of keeping me employed are too risky for the district, that parents are scared, and that even if I didn't actually send the messages, the whole situation makes me a liability. Other board members want to wait for the police investigation results and see what the Loudermill hearing reveals. Veronica says there's a real split on the board, and she's hearing that at least 3 members have already made up their minds that I need to go. She tells me to prepare for the possibility that even with all our evidence, the board might decide my career isn't worth the public relations nightmare. I hang up feeling like no matter how much proof we gather, politics and fear might win anyway. The next morning, Benjamin calls with better news. Leah contacted him to say the DA has reviewed the case and is declining to file criminal charges at this time. The official reason is evidentiary concerns and conflicting technical findings. It's not an exoneration. It's not the DA saying I'm innocent, but it means I'm not facing criminal prosecution. Benjamin explains this is huge because it takes the worst possible outcome off the table. I'm not going to be arrested, I'm not going to face trial, and I won't have a criminal record even if the employment case goes badly. The DA looked at Ahmed's forensic report showing the unknown Mac, looked at the carrier records showing no SMS texts, and decided there's too much reasonable doubt about who actually sent those messages. I feel this massive weight lift off my chest because at least I know I'm not going to jail, even if I might still lose my teaching license. That night, I sit in my apartment and record a personal statement on my phone. I explain the whole situation from my perspective, talk about the Apple ID hijacking, describe how I tried to help Jenna, and it got twisted into something terrible. I think about posting it on Reddit or YouTube, just putting my side out there so people can hear the truth directly from me. But then I call Benjamin and Veronica, and they both immediately tell me to hold off. Benjamin says anything I post publicly could still be used against me in the employment case, that the district's attorney will comb through every word looking for admissions or inconsistencies. Veronica adds that going public might make me feel better temporarily, but it could make the board members even more defensive and determined to fire me. I save the recording in a private folder and try to accept that sometimes defending yourself means staying silent and trusting the process, even when every part of you wants to scream the truth. The Loudermill hearing gets scheduled for the following Monday at 10 a.m. in a conference room at the district office. I arrive with Veronica and Benjamin at 9:45, and I feel like I'm about to throw up. My hands are shaking, so bad I can barely hold my folder of documents. We walk into the conference room and the panel is already there waiting. Ronan sits at the head of the table with his stack of investigation files. Principal Horns sits to his right looking uncomfortable, like he wishes he was anywhere else. Two district administrators I've never met sit across from them, both looking stern and official in business suits. The room has this cold fluorescent lighting and a big window overlooking the parking lot. There's a water pitcher and glasses on the table, but my mouth is so dry I don't think I could swallow anything. Benjamin and Veronica sit on either side of me, and Veronica touches my arm briefly like she's trying to steady me. Ronan starts the hearing by reading a formal statement about the purpose and procedures, and I try to focus on his words instead of the panic rising in my chest. I present my timeline first, walking the panel through the 40-page document showing where I was during every fake message timestamp. My voice shakes at the start, but I push through it, pointing out specific examples like the 2 a.m. message sent while I was provably asleep before an early morning meeting. I show them the carrier records proving I sent 0 SMS texts to Jenna's number, explaining that every message went through iMessage, which means they all could have been sent from that unknown Mac. I pull out the Apple ID email from October and explain how Jenna borrowed my phone right around that date, how she could have grabbed my credentials and 2-factor code in those few minutes. I admit straight out that I made mistakes with the informal tutoring, that I should have filed proper paperwork and shouldn't have accepted gifts like coffee and cards, but I look each panel member in the eye and tell them I never sent those messages, that someone else accessed my account and created this nightmare, and that while I made errors in judgment about boundaries, I never crossed the line into inappropriate conduct. Benjamin passes around copies of Ahmed's forensic report, and the panel members start flipping through the pages while I finish my presentation. Ahmed stands up and walks to the front of the table, and one of the administrators I don't know asks him to explain his findings in simple terms. Ahmed pulls out a printed diagram showing how Apple's messaging system works, and he starts explaining that when you sign into iMessage on a new device, it syncs all your past conversations and lets you send messages that appear to come from your phone number. He points to the metadata from the unknown Mac and shows the panel exactly. When it was used to send messages to Jenna, and then he pulls up my phone's location data from the same timestamps, showing I was either at the school in documented meetings or at home asleep. The panel members lean forward looking at the side-by-side comparison, and I can see them starting to understand. One administrator asks how someone could have gotten my Apple ID credentials, and Ahmed explains that with brief access to an unlocked phone, someone could grab the username and intercept the 2-factor code, especially if they knew what they were doing. Ronan asks if there's any way I could have sent the messages from the Mac myself, and Ahmed says technically yes, but he'd need to explain why my phone's location data and my documented schedule prove I wasn't the one using that device during those specific times. The questioning goes on for maybe 20 minutes, and Ahmed stays calm and confident through all of it, never getting defensive or uncertain. When he sits back down, I feel like maybe, just maybe, we've given them enough doubt. Benjamin stands up next, and he's got this whole presentation ready on his laptop. He pulls up a slide showing 2 columns, and on the left he lists the boundary violations I'm admitting to, like undocumented Saturday tutoring sessions and accepting gifts from a student. On the right he lists the allegations of inappropriate relationship and grooming behavior. He walks the panel through each column carefully, explaining that the left column represents poor judgment and policy violations that deserve corrective action, while the right column represents serious misconduct that the technical evidence strongly suggests was fabricated by someone else. He proposes a corrective action plan, including mandatory professional boundaries training, regular check-ins with an assigned mentor teacher, and documented procedures for any future student interactions outside normal class time. He emphasizes that I'm taking full responsibility for my mistakes with informal mentoring, but that terminating me for misconduct I didn't commit would be unjust given the forensic evidence. One of the administrators asks why I didn't follow proper procedures in the first place, and Benjamin acknowledges that I made errors in judgment trying to help a struggling student, but that those errors don't equal the predatory behavior I'm being accused of. The presentation takes maybe 15 minutes, and when Benjamin sits down, I feel like I can't breathe from the tension. Ronan stands up and thanks everyone for their time. Then he says the panel needs to deliberate privately and will provide a written determination within 5 business days. 5 days feels like forever when my entire career is hanging in the balance. We all stand up and start gathering our materials, and I look at Principal Horns, but he won't make eye contact with me. Veronica touches my elbow and guides me toward the door, and Benjamin follows behind us with his laptop bag. We walk out into the hallway, and I feel like my legs might give out. Veronica says I did everything I could, and now we just have to wait. But waiting feels impossible when every minute is going to be torture. Benjamin says the forensic evidence was strong, and my admission of the boundary violations without trying to minimize them probably helped, but he can't predict which way the panel will go. We walk out to the parking lot together, and I get in my car, and I just sit there for a long time staring at the steering wheel before I can even start the engine. The next 3 days are the worst of my life. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't focus on anything except imagining what the panel is discussing. I keep checking my email every 5 minutes, even though I know the determination won't come this fast. On the third day, my phone rings, and it's Benjamin, and my heart starts racing before I even answer. He says Leah just called him with news that the DA has officially closed the criminal investigation without filing charges. The technical evidence created enough reasonable doubt about who actually sent the messages, and without being able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that I was the one on that Mac, they can't move forward with charges. Benjamin says this is huge for the employment case because now the district can't point to pending criminal charges as justification for termination. I feel this wave of relief so strong I actually start crying on the phone, and Benjamin gives me a minute to pull myself together. He says we're not out of the woods yet because the district can still fire me for the boundary violations alone, but the criminal case being closed definitely weakens their position. I thank him about 6 times and hang up, and I just sit on my couch feeling like maybe I can breathe again. 2 days later, the email arrives at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday. The subject line says, Loudermill hearing determination, and I stare at it for a full minute before I can make myself open it. The email is formal and cold, 3 paragraphs of official district language. The first paragraph says, after careful review of all evidence and testimony, the panel has determined that while the evidence regarding the alleged inappropriate text messages is inconclusive, I did violate district policies regarding undocumented student contact and acceptance of inappropriate gifts. The second paragraph says, I'm being issued a formal written reprimand that will remain in my personnel file, and I'm required to complete professional boundaries training within 60 days. The third paragraph says, I will be reassigned to a different school for the next term to provide a fresh start for all parties involved. I read it 3 times trying to process what it means. I'm not fired. I still have my job, but I'm being punished and moved, and my reputation is still destroyed. I forward the email to Veronica and Benjamin, and Veronica calls me within 10 minutes saying this is actually a pretty good outcome given how bad things looked a month ago. She says the reprimand sucks, but it's not termination, and the reassignment might actually be better than trying to go back to my old school where everyone knows what happened. The next morning, I get a letter via certified mail from an attorney representing Jenna's parents. The letter is 2 pages of legal language, but the main point is clear. They're withdrawing their immediate threat of a lawsuit, but the letter specifically states they're reserving all civil options and makes very clear they still believe their daughter's version of events. There's no apology, no acknowledgement that maybe the messages were fake, no recognition that the DA closed the case. Just this cold legal letter stepping back from litigation while making sure I know they still think I'm guilty. I read it sitting at my kitchen table, and I feel this mix of relief and anger. Relief that I'm not facing a lawsuit right now, anger that they can't even consider the possibility that their daughter lied. I put the letter in the folder with all my other documentation and try to move forward. I make the mistake of checking Facebook that afternoon, and the posts are still there. Parent groups still talking about that teacher and the investigation, even though the case is closed. My name is out there forever now, connected to words like inappropriate and boundary violations and investigation. I Google myself, and the first results are local news articles about a teacher being investigated at my school, and even though they don't name me, anyone who knows me will know it's about me. I realize this is never going away. 10 years from now, someone could Google my name and find traces of this nightmare. I close my laptop and try not to think about how every future job interview, every parent-teacher conference, every interaction with colleagues will be colored by this. Principal Horns emails me 2 weeks later saying I'm allowed to return to campus to pack up my classroom, but I need to do it after hours when students aren't around. I drive to the school at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday and use my key to get in through the side entrance. The hallways are empty and dark except for the emergency lights, and my footsteps echo on the tile floors. I walk to my classroom and unlock the door, and seeing all my stuff still arranged like I'll be back tomorrow makes my chest tight. I start taking down posters and packing books into boxes, and every item feels like a piece of my old life that's gone now. The coffee mug Jenna gave me is still on my desk, and I stare at it for a long time before throwing it in the trash. It takes me 3 hours to pack everything, and when I'm carrying the last box to my car, I look back at the building and realize I'll probably never walk these halls again. Even if I wanted to come back, even if they'd let me, too much has been broken. Benjamin calls the following week and says the state teaching license board sent him a letter saying they'll be reviewing my case since there was a formal investigation. He says given the outcome and the technical evidence showing the messages were likely fabricated, he expects they'll close it with at most a cautionary note in my file. But it's another few months of waiting and uncertainty, another process hanging over my head. I ask him how long this is going to follow me, and he's quiet for a minute before saying that formal investigations leave a paper trail that never fully disappears, but that the fact I wasn't terminated or criminally charged will matter to future employers. It's not the reassurance I want, but it's honest, and I appreciate that he's not sugarcoating things. My landlord calls me 3 weeks after the district determination and asks if we can talk. I meet him in the building's lobby, and he's uncomfortable, not making eye contact. He says some other tenants have expressed concerns after hearing about the accusations, and while he's not evicting me, he'd really prefer if I found somewhere else to live when my lease is up in 2 months. I feel my face get hot, and I want to argue, want to explain that I was cleared, but I can see in his expression that it won't matter. The damage is done. I start apartment hunting that weekend and find a place across town that's smaller and costs $200 more per month. The moving costs and higher rent eat into my savings, and I'm exhausted from packing up another piece of my life. I load boxes into a rental truck on a Saturday morning and drive across town to my new place, and I try not to think about how I'm basically running away from my own neighborhood because people think I'm a predator. Veronica calls the week after I move and says she found a therapist who works with teachers who've been through false accusations. I don't want to go, but she's pretty firm about it being part of my recovery process, so I schedule an appointment for the following Thursday. The therapist's office is in this medical building downtown, and I sit in the waiting room feeling like everyone can see right through me. The first session is awkward as hell. The therapist asks me to explain what happened, and I give her the short version, and she just nods and takes notes without much reaction. I leave feeling like I wasted an hour and $150 of my savings. The second session isn't much better. But by the third session, something shifts, and I'm actually talking about why I let things get so blurry with Jenna in the first place. The therapist asks me what I was getting from all those coffee chats and Saturday tutoring sessions, and I realize I was getting validation. Like real validation that I was making a difference, that I was the favorite teacher, that I was actually good at this job. She points out that needing that validation made me ignore warning signs about the relationship becoming too personal. I'm sitting there on her couch, and it hits me that I let a student bring me coffee every Friday because it felt good to be appreciated, and I didn't see how that was crossing a line until it was way too late. 2 weeks after that session, Benjamin emails me saying he reached out to Jenna's parents through their attorney. He offered a mediated conversation where I could explain what happened, and they could ask questions in a controlled setting with both attorneys present. Their response comes back 3 days later, and it's ice cold. Their attorney writes that they appreciate the offer, but they have no interest in hearing my explanation, and the letter makes it super clear they still view me as having hurt their daughter, regardless of what the technical evidence shows. Benjamin forwards me the email and adds a note saying this is pretty common in these cases. Even when you're cleared, some people will never believe you're innocent. I read the email twice and then close my laptop because there's nothing I can do to change their minds. Veronica calls me a week later with news about Marissa. She says Marissa transferred to a different school and sent a note through the union office. The note says she feels guilty about the whole situation, but her parents don't want her involved anymore. Veronica asks if I want to respond or reach out, and I tell her no. Benjamin already warned me to maintain complete separation from anything involving Jenna or her friends, and I'm not about to mess that up now. I thank Veronica for letting me know, and that's the end of it. Marissa is gone from my life just like everything else from that school. The state license board letter arrives on a Tuesday morning in a thin envelope that makes my hands shake when I pull it from the mailbox. I open it standing right there in the parking lot of my apartment building. The letter says they're closing their review with a notation in my file about boundary awareness concerns, but no formal discipline. My teaching license remains active and unrestricted, which means I can keep teaching, I can keep my career, I can actually move forward. I read the letter 3 times to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. Then I go back inside and put it in a folder with all the other documentation. It's not an exoneration, but it's enough to let me keep going. My first day at the new school assignment happens 3 weeks later, and I'm so nervous I almost throw up in the parking lot. I keep thinking the staff knows about the investigation, that parents have Googled me, that I'm going to walk in and face whispers and suspicious looks all over again. But the principal greets me in the main office, and she's professional and welcoming. She shows me to my new classroom and introduces me to the teachers in the rooms next to mine. They're polite if a bit reserved, and I can't tell if they know anything or if this is just normal new teacher treatment. One teacher brings me a spare stapler, and another one tells me where the good coffee machine is hidden. I spend the day setting up my classroom and trying not to compare it to the room I had to pack up in the dark 3 months ago. I implement strict new policies for myself starting day 1. All student communication happens through official school email only, no exceptions. Tutoring sessions are documented in writing and happen only in the library with other people present. I keep my classroom door open during any one-on-one conversations, even if it's just a quick question after class. I never accept gifts from students, not even a stick of gum or a piece of candy. If a student tries to give me something, I thank them and suggest they give it to the school office for the teacher appreciation basket instead. The boundaries feel excessive and paranoid at first. Like I'm building walls between myself and my students, like I'm being cold and distant when I should be warm and approachable. But gradually I realize these structures actually make me feel safer and more confident. I know I'm protected if anyone ever tries to manipulate the relationship again, and that peace of mind is worth being less accessible. 3 months into the new assignment, I get another letter from the license board. This one officially closes my case with no further action required. I keep the letter in a folder with all the other documentation from the investigation. Carrier records showing I never sent those texts, Forensic reports proving someone else accessed my Apple ID. Hearing transcripts from the Loudermill. The district's determination letter. Everything is in that folder just in case I ever need to defend myself again. Just in case someone tries to bring this up years from now. Just in case the nightmare starts over. I write out the whole story in a private document one Saturday afternoon when I can't stop thinking about it. Every detail from the lunch interruption to the final license board letter. I type for 3 hours straight, and when I'm done, it's 15 pages long. Part of me wants to post it anonymously online to warn other teachers, to tell them to be careful, to explain how easily this can happen to anyone. But Benjamin advises against it when I mention the idea. He says even anonymous posts could be traced back and used against me if Jenna's parents ever do file a civil suit. So the document stays private, saved on my laptop in a password-protected folder that only I can access. 6 months after everything started, I'm chaperoning a district-wide academic competition at the convention center downtown when I spot her across the main hall. Jenna is standing with her new school's team, wearing their colors and holding a binder, laughing at something another student just said. She doesn't see me because I'm behind a registration table helping check teams in, and I freeze for a second just watching her look so normal and happy. Part of me feels this hot anger bubbling up because she almost destroyed my entire life. Cost me thousands in legal fees, made me move apartments, and put me through 6 months of pure hell. But another part of me just feels sad for whatever was going on in her head that made her think framing me was somehow a solution to whatever she was dealing with. I don't approach her or try to make contact. I just turn back to my clipboard and keep checking in teams, and eventually her group moves to their competition room, and I don't see her again that day. I'm still teaching and my license is intact, which means I survived this whole nightmare, but I'm different now in ways that are both good and bad. I'm way more careful and professional with every single student interaction. I document everything. I never meet with students alone, and I keep my classroom door open during any one-on-one conversations. The boundaries feel safer, but they also feel like walls, and I've lost some of the warmth and openness that made me good at connecting with students in the first place. Kids don't stay after class to chat anymore because I'm polite but distant, and I don't get nominated for Teacher of the Year or receive handmade cards. The career I worked 6 years to build is still here. I still have my license and my job, but it's altered in ways I'm still learning to accept. I'm a teacher who survived being framed, but I'm also a teacher who learned that being too open and too trusting can cost you everything.